Thank you to those of you just now joining. We're going to get started here in a couple minutes just to give others time to leave the lunch session. All right, as we are letting everyone get settled in here, I'm going to just go over some housekeeping rules that we have to make the session just go a little more smoothly. One of those being that we have a chat and a QA function available. We ask that you don't utilize the chat during the session just because it closes in 15 minutes. And so we want to make sure any questions you have is put into the Q&A ask a question function. That way my assistant here, Greg, is able to display those at the end of the session so that we can address it for the good of the whole. Again, don't utilize the chat because we will be unable to access that after 15 minutes. So I want to be able to address any questions you might have. In the chat, we're going to go ahead and drop a couple of things, though, just so you have a record of that. You are able to still view the chat, even though you can't respond to it. And a couple of the things we're going to put in there will be our pre-admissions email, which is preadmissions@che.in.gov, and our landing page that we'll reference a couple different times throughout the presentation, just in case you are like me, you're a visual person, you want to be able to access the thing as we're talking about it. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, feel free to put questions as you have them in the Q&A. If we're unable to get to them during the session, I'm going to follow up with everyone. So go ahead and include your email if you'd like to, and or just your name, so that way we're able to link that question back to you. So I wanted to start with our HOPE agenda goals. So the pre-admissions initiative ties into specifically our first HOPE agenda goal of post-high school training and education going rates for youth and adults across all demographics. So we have a goal in Indiana to be in the top 10 throughout the nation by 2030 in all of these respective areas, but specifically with pre-admissions, it ties into that first goal. From data from Next Steps Idaho, which was the first statewide direct admissions initiative in the country, we see the potential for the fifth goal there to be able to retain talent in Indiana to also be addressed in this, but pre-admissions was born out of the first initial goal. So for Indiana's college going rate, you can see that in 2021, the statewide college going rate was 53%. And that has declined yearly since 2015, with 53% in 2021 being the first year that we kind of held steady, which signals the curve in Indiana towards an increase in college going rate, which we're excited to be able to contribute to via pre-admissions. So just in reference, let me go back, I'm jumping ahead here. So in reference back to the HOPE agenda, the commission has set a goal of returning to at least 65% college going rate for high school seniors in 2030. And this data won't be available though until 2028. So we do have to wait a few years to be able to see that, but we are hopeful to be able to get to the 65% college going rate. So we do have some data dashboards, which are often put up on our che.in.gov website. So the data dashboards are tied into CHE, which is the Commission for Higher Education, partnering with the Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation, RMFF for short, on data sharing so that RMFF can create and maintain a dashboard that's specific to this grant. So we annually release the college readiness dashboard that shows the college going rate at the school, the district, county, and the regional level. And the college going rate is a lagging indicator, which is due to that data being 2 years behind. So CHE tracks current enrollment and will engage in forecasting the terms of potential influence of strategic initiatives, including the ones that are listed there under the forecasting circle that we have for strategic initiatives. And so all the things that are listed are things that are going to contribute to us being able to be in the top 10 for the nation by 2030. So the commission seeks to increase the overall college going rate for high school seniors statewide. It's seeking partners to help address the equity gaps, including those pertaining to race and ethnicity, which you can see here that we have a outline with the bar graph here kind of showing what that looks like in terms of Indiana college going rate by race and ethnicity. We also have it per gender, which I'll show now. So we are noticing that on average, men continue to go to college at a lower rate than women. And we're noticing that college going wide, that is across all races and ethnicities. So it is something that we're aware of and we are striving to be able to address as we move forward. And something that is at the foremost of our thoughts. So how does this tie into pre-admissions and what is pre-admissions, your path to college? So Indiana pre-admissions is exactly what it says it is, a pre-admissions initiative for the high school class of 2024. So it is the first year of that. For high school seniors in 327 different participating high schools, we have notified them that they are eligible to be pre-admitted into up to 38 participating colleges and universities that they qualify for. So the commission, in partnership with those institutions, as well as the Indiana Department of Education, are using the high school GPAs and the SAT scores to inform students of those options so that they're aware of what institution they are pre-qualified for. And we direct students to a landing page that we've created, which is on the Learn More Indiana's website, that links to the Common App, as well as the institution's admission process, and also promotes information related to the FAFSA, which we know students are very eager to just have an ease of access to be able to see instead of having to look those up per institutions. We are going to drop that link into the chat so that way you're able to kind of explore what that page looks like. And we recommend that you save it in case you have a later date where you have a conversation with a student just for ease of access. So where pre-admissions falls in sort of the roadmap of it all, you can see that we have mapped out from middle school graduation to high school graduation. Pre-admissions is towards the very end. However, it kind of is encompassed by all of these steps that lead up to that. So pre-admissions decisions will be delivered to students in September of their senior year. And that's because it's based off of the junior year GPA and SAT information, which makes us able to send that at the start of senior year. So throughout their senior year, they can explore the options and opportunities that they have before them to decide what might be the best fit for them. And then strategically utilizing pre-admissions with 21st Century Scholars auto-enrollment and the required FAFSA filing will be a benefit to us as we just sort of increase the yield for enrollment and the utilization of state financial aid. So we know that 75% of state aid recipients remain in the state after graduation. So pre-admissions can be a lever for both college going and graduation retention. So there are three main objectives that pre-admissions encompasses. So we want to inform Indiana high school seniors about opportunities for post-secondary education, which is available to them after graduation, while also assisting Indiana high school seniors in affording those opportunities by providing various guides and just resources of support. A lot of that we do put on our landing page. However, there's nothing more valuable than being able to have a sit-down conversation, which is where our counselors come into play. And we also want to achieve the CHE's goal of providing access to high-quality education or training for more than 60% of Indiana residents. And if I could just share some data. So we are not the first state to implement this. That was Idaho, but we have some data from Idaho that suggests that this could be a very successful thing for the state of Indiana. So after Idaho implemented their direct admissions program in fall of 2015, their first-time undergraduate enrollments increased over 8%. Their in-state student enrollment increased almost 12%, and migration of in-state students to out-of-state institutions decreased by 3%. So we're hopeful to see the same, if not, better results from this. So key points and terminologies to keep in mind. While Idaho was able to implement a direct admissions program, we are in Indiana pre-admissions program, not a direct admissions. And this avoids the confusion with the fact that we have campuses who already have direct admission programs, but also Idaho had 8 institutions they were able to list on there. So it was kind of easier for them as opposed to us here in Indiana who have a multitude of wonderful institutions to consider. And so the pre-admissions also implies that there are next steps, with that next step largely being that we need the student to actually apply to the institution of choice And it's not necessarily just you can show up day one of class and walk in, sit down, and have a go at it. There are some steps to follow there. So participating institutions have agreed to honor those pre-admissions decisions, but that's assuming that students maintain eligibility criteria. So that can be meeting the caveats, if there's a caveat specific for institutions, which we do list that on our website of the landing page so you have access to that. And also the students need to take this next steps to apply and enroll as well. And then we define college broadly here at the Commission because we want students and families to know that they have options, and this is just a good way to point out the post-secondary education opportunities that they have. So we did want to take some time to recognize the nearly 80% of Indiana institutions who have opted in for this class of 2024 in this first year. So we're hopeful to have many more join us. However, we believe that 80% is pretty impressive, and it really shows, the Indiana colleges and universities coming out to support this initiative. So we have 38 of 48, which is approximately 79.1% of eligible campuses participating, which represents 28 of the 36 eligible institutions we have here in Indiana. There are some different reasons that institutions have decided not to participate in this first year, with some of them being holistic admissions processes that they need to consider, as well as a change in leadership. We do know for a fact that we have a couple of our institutions who are planning to join in 2025 for this next year. It was just due to a change of leadership, was unable to do it here in this first year. And some other things to consider is institutions who might have gender-based admissions, since we do not, when assigning students to schools via Scholar Track, we don't do that via gender. So institutions will be able to opt in every year for the new graduating cohort, which is a plus there. So if any institution is interested in participating in the future, we are able to just opt them in. And we're committed to communicating with students about all of the opportunities for post-secondary education and training in Indiana. So our pre-admissions letters in the landing page they refer to will communicate information about applying to all institutions, not just the institutions that you see on the screen. We did label it out as to the institutions who are participating in pre-admissions or towards the front of the webpage as you're scrolling down, and those who are not are listed towards the bottom of the section. And I always think data is a great way to just kind of prove when a program is doing something that is benefiting, and that is pre-admissions is no exception. So I'm really excited to share some of this data that we already have with it just being a few months in. So the average number of decisions per student has been 24 campuses. And so 78% of eligible students received 4+ campuses listed on their letter that they received in September. So that's about 44,000 students. 77% of eligible students received 13+ campuses, which is about 43,000 students. And we had 28% of our students, which is about 16,000, receive all 38 campuses. It is important to note that all students who were at a participating high school received a letter, and all of those letters had at minimum 3 institutions due to having 3 institutions who are an open enrollment campus. And so in total, we had 1.3 million pre-admissions decisions sent to seniors, sharing the opportunities that they had. So you might be wondering how you can help. So for the 327 high school opt-in for the class of 2024, that was the number of high schools opted in to participate, and you can see that it's spaced out throughout the state of Indiana. So participating high schools submitted their end of junior year semester GPAs to Scholar Track, and then we also received SAT scores, the junior year SAT score, and updated addresses from the Department of Education, which is how we were able to send these letters out both in August and September. So that August initial letter was specifically for letting them know that a September letter with more details was coming. So that way, when they received the September letter, they weren't surprised to see that that was there. We also use Scholar Track to match students to institutions based on GPA and or their SAT score, depending on what the cutoff score was going to be for institutions. So with the graph that we have here, we have the orange dots represent our higher education institution, and our blue dots represent our high schools. We do have a link to the map, which we might not be able to put in the chat here. However, we will have it made available whenever we post this recording as well as this PowerPoint. It'll be at the bottom notes section here, so that you're able to review that in more detail if you'd like. So a question I had received in a previous presentation today was regarding why we didn't consider diploma types whenever we chose to do the GPA or the SAT score. And that's because we are asking for the junior year semester GPA. So we don't have that concrete, this is a diploma type the student is going to receive when they graduate, because in their senior year, anything could happen and that could change. So we just pulled what we could from the end of year junior data from ScholarTrack, and it just happens to be GPA and SAT. That was the most easily accessible for that reason. So how you can support students directly. So after students receive this letter in September, it's the best way, I guess, to support students would be to assist in creating the ScholarTrack accounts, as well as upgrading or updating the ScholarTrack accounts. The upgrading is important as they are transitioning to that college-like atmosphere, because there's going to be this different features that they would need for college than they do for high school. And unless they update that account with their social security number, we're not going to be able to, or college professionals won't be able to assist them in the same way. Versus updating their ScholarTrack account, that could just be as easily adding maybe a new email address that's more accessible. So if a student signs up for an account using a high school email that's not going to be available to them 6 months after graduating from high school, it's good to just use that time to get them to update to an email address that might be personal or more easily accessible. We encourage you to meet with students to discuss their list of pre-admitted colleges and ensure that they're comfortable with their next steps, which we do outline on both the letter as well as our landing page. And so with meeting with these students, another question that I had received previously today was what schools do we tell students to look at? How do we point them in a direction? My gut reaction is just let them do the thinking, let them reflect kind of on the different things they're considering as they consider colleges. It could be the distance a college is going to be. It could be cost. It could be related to maybe what type of support program am I going to have there? Is this a better option for me in terms of fitting in with sense of belonging? So let them kind of dive into that, give them some guiding questions maybe that they can reflect on. And from there, have them come back and meet with you with maybe their top 5 picks so that you can discuss really what that would look like for them, the steps to take to ensure they're meeting deadlines and that sort of thing. And we also would encourage students and families to create their FSA IDs to prepare for filing the FAFSA, which is expected to open at some point this month. So that's a process you can already go ahead and support your students and their families in. And then from December to April, kind of overlapping with the September to May agenda, we would suggest partnering with our outreach team. So our outreach coordinators are phenomenal when it comes to just supporting students. And this is another area that they would be excellent to network within, as well as InvestEd on just the FSA ID creation and just FAFSA filing as a whole. Again, it opens by December 31st of this year. So it's actually the perfect time to create an FSA ID to be prepared for filing that FAFSA. And ensure students and families file the FAFSA by April 15th. So that's the state deadline to be able to receive state financial aid. So we encourage earlier the better, but definitely by April 15th, getting that in. And help students monitor in the institutional FAFSA deadline to maximize their financial aid opportunities. So we went ahead and made it easy for counselors, and we put it on the landing page. So on our landing page, which we have a screenshot of here in a bit, we will have we'll kind of show you what an institution box would look like and the different information we have on there. And a couple of the things that we included was that FAFSA deadline per institution, so that you kind of know this institution has a scholarship that's available until November 1st. November 1st is maybe not a good example, February 1st. We need to file that FAFSA earlier so that they can be considered for that, because often institutions consider the FAFSA being filed as part of a scholarship criteria. So including that is important, but we also went ahead and added the FAFSA code. So when you're helping a student, if you are helping a student complete a FAFSA, just having ease of access to enter that specific institution code that they want to enter, which with the new FAFSA, you're able to enter up to 20. So it's kind of in par with what we have here. Something real big that often goes a little overlooked is making sure those students monitor their new college email once they accept an admissions offer. They'll start getting emails immediately, and oftentimes that's going to be related to things they need to do, maybe next steps they need to complete once they've selected that institution they're interested in, but also it could be scholarship opportunities. So making sure they're not missing out on those different opportunities is important. And often with ScholarTrack, I encourage, once they've selected and they've committed to an institution, having them just update their institution or their ScholarTrack email to whatever that institution is, so they're getting all of that information in one hub, can be an excellent way to just keep everything in line on that end. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll show you what the landing page looks like, but I also wanted to show for my counselors on the session what it will look like for you when you're in ScholarTrack. So this is going to be a student viewpoint. So if I was a student and were to log in, I would see the words pre-admissions, which is going to be the widget available to all students who are in participating pre-admission high schools. And it's going to list all my institutions that I'm eligible to be pre-admitted into. And so that list could be, again, the minimum of 3 all the way to the 38 institutions. And this doesn't hyperlink you to our landing page. However, our landing page is available on our Learn More website to be able to search, which is why we encourage sending it far and wide. And when students received their letter, they also had a QR code that directed them to the landing page with the next steps, including a link to ScholarTrack to be able to log in. So we think it's important to be able to have these pre-admissions decisions located in ScholarTrack because, frankly, having a paper letter in front of you all the time isn't always possible. And maybe they left it at home and they're having a meeting with you discussing this. It's just nice to be able to log in. But what's also nice for the counselor side of things is that you will be able to run a report for your cohort of for this year, 2024, and be able to see where those students were admitted to. So for whatever data purpose you might want to use this for, you're able to pull that report for just a list of all those seniors. But an additional thing you can do is just log in to maybe a student search. Once you're in ScholarTrack, search in Johnny B, be able to pull his account up. You can impersonate him to view his decisions, but also on your end, you should be able to see it as well. Just an easier way, maybe on one-off conversations during a passing period, a student has a question, you just want to pull it up real quick. Being able to do that instead of having to download a whole report every time is just really helpful. And then for our pre-admissions landing page, this is what it looks like. Again, on the letters, it was QR coded so that they can pull it up on their phone, or there's also the link so if they want to type it into a computer, they're able to do that to save the page. We did put the August student letter and the September student letter on the website so that students and families are able and counselors are able to view that. We went ahead and put the parent letter as well, just in case anyone was curious what that was. The parent letter really mimics the September student letter. It just says instead of student's name, parent of, insert student's name with the same decisions, pre-admission decisions. So it's not going to say a completely different list for their student. It will be the exact same letter with the same next steps. Just because families often want to help and assist their student in any way they can. And this is a great way to just help them build that sense of support and belonging as they're considering these opportunities, having their family in the loop as well. So you can see just a little blurb about what was in the letters, as well as like just directing them to the next step. We've hyperlinked a lot of different things that we felt would be helpful, including College Application Week, which is where a lot of students can apply for colleges for free. So we kind of line pre-admissions up to go out in September so that we could line up with that College Application Week. So you're getting this letter with all of these institution names on them, and then you can see that you can apply for those colleges for free, like in a couple weeks. It's just a nice way to line that up. We also linked you to the FAFSA as well as a list of any additional requirements, which are going to be those caveats for admissions to specific institutions, which I won't go into a list of every caveat that it could be, but I would encourage everyone to take a gander at that as you are discussing these with your students. And then in terms of the colleges participating, so again, we broke it down with the top half being the colleges participating, the bottom half having very similar information, but outlining that it was the colleges not participating. We put the application deadline as well as the logos so that you kind of got a feel for maybe Ball State. It has rolling admission, knowing when you need to have or encourage students to apply to that. We put any application fee. It is of note that often 21st century scholars are able to apply to campuses for free, and it will say that within the application. We also link to Common App for those institutions who have a Common App-based application process as opposed to those who have the Apply Now, which is directly through the institution's website. And then we had the FAFSA deadline and the FAFSA school code on there. I will say the FAFSA deadline that is currently on the website is based off the information we had at that time. Again, the FAFSA for 24-25 is going to be opening at some point this month. So it's very likely that the FAFSA deadline is going to, for scholarship specifics, is going to shift in any capacity, and we will update this website as we have that information. So different resources that might be helpful are outreach coordinators. Again, they're that first line of defense of being able to get into the schools and assist with setting up ScholarTrack accounts, figuring out what's going on in pre-admissions, updating information for you. So say you have a cohort of over 1,000 students and you're worried about getting all those SAT scores or the GPAs uploaded in time, you can reach out to your outreach coordinator and they're more than happy to assist you in any way that they can. They'll come into your school. They will go over information with you. If you are just wanting someone to present on pre-admissions to high school students, I myself am more than happy to assist you in doing this. But we have links as to how you can contact your specific outreach coordinator, as it is by region, on our website, which I did link within the PowerPoint that you will have access to at a later date. But again, if you want to reach out to preadmissions@che.in.gov, which is on the screen, but also in the chat for any program administrative support, I'm more than happy to assist. If you have questions, if you have ideas, if you have maybe something you're worried we hadn't thought about, we're more than happy to take that feedback and go with it. And if we want to, or if we need to follow up with you at a later date, we'll definitely be doing that as well. I'm always open to learning new things, but it's the first year of an amazing initiative, but you can't always get everything right. So if there's anything you feel like you want to share with us, feel free to go ahead and do that as well. So here's my name, here's the email again. In order to be able to see the questions here in a second, I'm going to have to stop sharing my screen for the presentation. So I'm just going to leave this up on the screen for just a second more in case anyone wants to copy that. But again, that email is going to be in the chat feature, which you should still have access to after I stop sharing the presentation. And then we'll go into our Q&A. So I'm going to end this PowerPoint. Again, just use the chat feature. Okay, and Greg is going to assist me with displaying the questions on the screen, so then I will read them back out to you just in case we need that accessibility for any reason. And then whenever Greg's ready, we can go ahead and get started. Okay, so SAT scores, are they only the school day SAT score? So I am wondering if this question is pertaining to when I know that students have to sit and take the SAT, if it is the scores from those days. We have whatever info is updated in ScholarTrack. So if a student retakes maybe outside of the school day where they are assigned to take the SAT and they take that SAT at a later date, maybe on their own, that score just needs to be reported to a counselor, whoever at your high school is going to be updating that information, so it can be updated in ScholarTrack. Depending on the timeline of when that happens, we're able to recalculate a student's pre-admissions decisions. There is a cutoff, of course, so we can send that information out. But as long as it's before August or roughly mid-August, I would say it's not a problem to just update that. You can also just send an email to pre-admissions. As long as we have the counselor reaching out to say this is the student's new score, I can validate that. We're also happy to update that on our end as well, so we can make sure students are getting the most up-to-date pre-admission schools. But I will hit at the point that there is a point we have to stop updating information in order for it to just be set in stone, so we can share that information with institutions so they kind of have a rough head count as to what to expect. So if a student performs poorly on the school day SAT and does not qualify for pre-admissions but improves their score in later testing, are they using non-pre-admission status as a negative strike against admission? They are not using negative strike against admission. They don't get the information until after we have stopped reporting for that. So once an SAT and GPA will have a very strict cutoff date, which we in the outreach coordinators will all communicate, probably a lot more than it needs to be, but we just want to make sure that that date is fresh in everyone's head to let them know when that cutoff is going to be. So as long as we get all the finalized scores ahead of that date and we are enforcing it to students, that this is the cutoff date. If you're going to retake your SAT, it needs to be ahead of this date to be able to get the score so we can update that. There should be no issue with that. We also don't share the SAT or GPA decisions of a specific student with our institution, so that there's none of that worry that'll be counted against them. We have that information housed in ScholarTrack, so when that information is pulled here at the commission is where we do the matching on the back end. And do we know what schools they've been pre-admitted to? Yes. So this will be what you're able to see in ScholarTrack. So if you're a school user or a school admin, or you have a school user admin at your high school, they're able to download an overarching report that's going to have all that information listed there. If not, then you are able to just look up a student, and within the ScholarTrack feature on the back end, you can see a list of the pre-admitted schools the students were admitted to. It might take a little longer if you're wanting to just have a quick look, take a view of it. I would recommend downloading the report, but you should be able to do it by just a student search. And then if you ever have, maybe you can't find a student or you're not seeing anything, go ahead and email that to the pre-admissions at che.in.gov email, and then we can take a deeper look to see if there's maybe something going on the back end. So most Indiana schools limit their free application during Go College Week to those who apply on the school portal and not to those who apply Common App. Is this likely to change? I can't speak for the part about the Common App. I know that with the landing page, the way we have it set up is it's not going to stay within the landing page. They're not creating an account on the landing page. It'll be linking them directly to the application website or application page of that institution, so they should be able to still have that honored. However, this is a question that, just to make sure I'm answering it properly, if you want to send your email just as another Q&A, Greg won't share it with everyone, to me, I can follow up on that, and I plan to respond to all of these questions at the end of the conference and try to get out, when we send the recording and the PowerPoint, just send a list of these questions with a more proper formal response for you so that we're able to answer it wholeheartedly. So I don't have a complete answer for you now, but I'm hopeful to have it whenever we send this material out. Okay, I got the thumbs up for Greg. So I think that's the only question we have for now, but we'll stay on just for a couple more minutes, just in case any of them come on or come up. You're more than happy, or it's okay if you need to go, you have another meeting to attend and can't wait for any other questions. Again, I'm hoping to be able to send this information out with the PowerPoint and the recording. So if a student transfers in August from another state, if we update them in ScholarTrack, will they be a part of pre-admissions? If we have all of that student's information in ScholarTrack, then yes, we would be able to get that decision made for them. Again, it's going to be a timeline thing. So it kind of just depends on when that is in August. If it's towards the latter half of it, I can't guarantee that, but if we can get within the first week, then likely yes, because we'll be able to pull that information. Again, we have a cutoff date that hasn't been predetermined yet, but when that cutoff date is set in stone, we won't be able to do anything past that. And a question I had in another session earlier today, and I apologize for not mentioning this, is that someone was concerned that this pre-admissions decision was only for our 21st century scholars, and this is for every senior in a pre-admissions participating high school. So it's not just for our scholars, but it's something that can be utilized for all seniors. And in addition to that, we really encourage everyone to have a ScholarTrack account, not just our scholars. So if you're able to encourage all your students to create a ScholarTrack account, they'll be able to see their pre-admission decisions there, but they'll also be able to update information and utilize helpful as a college going professional, and have helpful information there for them to complete that can kind of help with that. Okay. Says we have another question coming in. So for students who are pre-admitted to a lot of schools, 20 plus, are you thinking about future tools to help them focus on their initial exploration so they're not overwhelmed by so many options? That's a great question, Ron. I would say yes, it's definitely something to consider, but also I believe a lot of my personal belief is that a lot of just like having the conversation with someone is a good way for students to kind of factor out what their priorities are. It is a lot of schools, especially if you're getting all 38, but even getting 3 of them, like to consider what's going to be the best fit for you as a senior in high school. You need more sometimes than just that senior year of high school, right, to consider that. So we're hopeful conversations will be something that will be able to get the student thinking about it, but also tools will be useful. I will say that we have a Scholar Success program that right now only 21st century scholars participate in. It's located in ScholarTrack. They need to do it for their award. But again, any student can make a ScholarTrack account and they can participate in those same activities. A lot of those activities are getting them thinking about college, getting them thinking about other opportunities they might have, as well as like figuring out what is the best fit for you and what fits what you want to do with your life. So encouraging them to participate in those activities, I think, would be a good way to get that conversation started. And for me, when I remember being a 21st century scholar, not knowing first generation, not knowing what college even meant as a whole, having the opportunity of attending any college was exciting for me. And I did a lot of like self-research, and I did a lot of sitting down with my counselors and like talking about it. So maybe just encouraging those conversations or encouraging them to talk to their peers to kind of see what their peers are doing. But we can definitely explore any tools aside from Scholar Track that could be helpful to get students thinking about that. And that can also be another way to utilize your outreach coordinator, because I know that they have a lot of tricks up their sleeve to get conversations started. So I think this could be a good way to utilize them in your high school. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. If we do get any that come in again, and we're going to try to send this out, a Q&A response out with our PowerPoint in our presentation. And if not, we were definitely able to send this out. If you email it to us, we can respond to any direct question you might have. We're not seeing any more in the chat, so I would say that we are good to go for the day. Again, feel free to reach out if you have anything. It's in the chat feature, but I can also pull up the PowerPoint presentation if someone's unable to see that, just so you have the email available. But it's very simple. It's pre-admissions with an S at the end, so pre-admissions at che.in.gov. It's overseen by myself as well as members of my team. So we're usually able to get responses out pretty quickly. If it's something more complicated that we need to look into, we might ask that we have a call or just like a sit-down meeting about that. But it definitely depends on the question there. Well, thank you all so much for attending the conference today. I don't believe there's any closing remarks, so whenever you're ready to go, you're welcome to go ahead and exit out. I'll stay on just a little while longer in case there's any additional questions.